David Reckless back to you with part 2 of coaching, club fitting and club building process. We're up to John's clubs putting his grips on, and we checked the size of his hands. John did choose the Golf Pride 2G Tour Wrap grip. I've gone through and weighed them all, and what I'm doing is I'm putting the heavier grips on the longer clubs and the lighter grips on the shorter clubs. The grip I put on the 5-iron was 47.5 grams, 47.5 grams, and the grip I put on the other way around, 48.5 grams I put on the 5-iron, and the 47.5 grams I put on the 9-iron. Now you'd think they'd be the same, but you can see there's actually 1 gram difference there, and I like to make sure I'm right. So I'm going heavier grip, longer club, lighter grip, shorter club. I'm going to show you if that works out at the end. So we know we had to apply, because the grip was a little too thin for John, and the problem with a real thin grip is you'll tend to hook the ball, your hands will work a little faster, and if your grip's too thick, it'll tend to slice the ball. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting 2 wraps of masking tape underneath his grips before I put the grips on, just to get them the right size for him. It's very important that we have everything set up correctly so we know what's going on. Now, all I do is I grab the grip that I've chosen for this club, I apply some rubber cement to the inside of the grip, put some on the tape, just wipe the excess off on the tape, place the club on the ground, making sure it's square, and I'm going to make sure I get the grip on nice and straight. It's very, very important, so when they grip the golf club, they can get the club face nice and square and the grip can actually match. When they mass produce them, they're doing them that fast. Sometimes some slip through the hands of the checkers, and I've had a couple of cases where the person that's clubs, the grips aren't just on quite square enough, so just making sure. So that's how we go about putting the grip on. Now, probably the ultimate check, as I said to you, I put the heavier grips on the longer clubs and the lighter grip on the shorter club. This is a great way to test. This is our swing weight scale. So I've got my 5 and the 9-iron here, and if I place this on the swing weight scales, let's move everything out of the way so we can do it nice and effectively. The length of John's clubs with his 5-iron was 37.5 inches. Now, measuring the length of his clubs, doing it this way is absurd. A lot of people measure your fingertips to the ground. Well, you don't swing a golf club in that position. So when I'm measuring the length of the club, I'm making sure that John has the correct posture for his shot, and making sure the ball is hitting towards the centre of the club face, which the lie angle we know affects that, but also the length of the club also affects the lie angle. So for every ½ inch change in length, it changes the lie angle by 1 degree. And we found 5-iron at 37.5 inches, 7 degrees flat. Now his 9-iron is D1. Let's put his 5-iron on to see if it's the same. Voila. Making sure it's not touching anything. Spot on the dot. It's the same weight. So D1 for his 5-iron, D1 for his 9-iron, trying to make sure that all the irons are D1 swing weight. So they're all the same. Very important. The other machine I use is a frequency machine, which measures the shaft flex. It measures the flex in what we call CPMs, which are cycles per minute. So what I do is I place the golf club in the frequency machine in its playing position, making sure it's square. Now just vibrating the shaft between the 2 sensors. Very good, we're all ready to go. Try that again just to make sure it's giving us the correct reading. Go. So that says 278 cycles per minute. Let's have a look at the 9 iron. Let's see what it reads for us. .299 cycles per minute. So 14 cycles is considered one flex. So 278 to 299. There's nearly 20 cycles. Now, remember I cut from the tip. So as the club gets shorter, it should get a little stiffer. Now I don't always agree with this because my set is not set up that way. I've done the straight line cut. So my frequency from my 3 iron to my sand iron is about 10 degrees different, 10 CPMs different. So there's very little change in flex. But in John's we wanted it a little differently. So I've done the slope cut so that each club gets a little stiffer as it gets shorter. Okay? And that's what we found worked properly for John. So we're just making sure that everything's okay there. So that's pretty close. 20 cycles difference between the 5 iron and the 9 iron. And the 6, 7, 8 will fall in between that. So 20 cycles difference between the 5 iron and the 9 iron is not too bad. As I said, that's because we've nipped different size off the tips. When you do a straight line cut, like I did with my clubs, I have 10 cycles difference between my 3 iron and my sand wedge. So my sand wedge and my 3 iron feel the same. This is a very rare thing, straight line cutting, and it's done by a company called Henry Griffiths. So we can do that if we need to, but with John's we haven't done that. Now what we've got to do is we've got to do the lofts and lies. The beautiful things with the internet is that you can look up the lofts and lies of what we want. Now we know we fitted John into this club, so we put it in the loft and lie machine. Okay, I'll grab my bending bar. So the loft of the 9 iron is 42 degrees. First of all, I'm going to change the lie angle. So the lie angle is 66.5. I'm going to take that down to 4 degrees flat to 62.5. Why? Because John's coming in this afternoon to try these clubs, and we want to make sure we've got somewhere to go. So at 4 flat, I'm going to check him. I may need to go all the way to 7, but I'm just going to make sure. I don't want to go too far and have to go back. So as I said, 66.5, that's 65. Let's bend it a little further. That's 64. .62.5. So that's 4 degrees flat. As I said, when we fitted in he was 7, but when he comes in this afternoon I want to check him at 4 degrees flat and make sure how many more degrees we've got to go. We just want to make sure everything's okay, so I'm not going to rush into it. I like to do things in stages. As I said, 42 degrees loft. We're going to take that up to 44 degrees. So now we're going to bend it with a loft. As you can see, it's pretty easy to move the mild steel. There we go, 44 degrees of loft. So we've put a little bit more loft on it for him. Now what I'll do is I'll clean up the shaft and I'll put the shaft cal on, which shows us what type of shaft it is. But also I have a record in my files of what I've done with these clubs, even to the point where I put down the weights of the grips and the weights of the shafts. So I have a complete record of what we've done with the golf club. Now we'll put the shaft cal on, just for the description of the shaft. We make sure we get it nice and straight, so the club face is square, so it looks good. Okay, this one actually says it's A-flex, but it's not quite A-flex. I know exactly what it is, and then what I'm going to do from there, I use a little bit of turpentine on a nice clean rag, just to get the excess glue off the golf club. And make sure it's nice and clean for when John comes up to pick his clubs up. There's nothing worse than seeing a dirty set of golf clubs. I've recorded the frequency, I've recorded the swing weight, I've recorded the weight of the shaft, I've recorded the weight of the grip, and recorded what tipping instructions I took off the tip, and the lofts and the lies. That's all ready for go for John this afternoon when he comes in, for us to go through and follow up and make sure that he's got exactly what we've asked for. Now I'll see John for a number of months just to make sure he's happy with what we've done with the golf club. It's very, very important, the follow-up sessions. I don't charge for my time. That's part of the service of buying clubs off me after I build them, is I make sure the client is happy with what we're doing. And if I need to make any adjustments to the golf club, long term I can do that. Whether it's a shaft change, whether it's a lie or loft change, it's very, very important. I hope you found these two videos very informative about my business and how I run my teaching, club fitting and club building business. If you have any questions, go to my website www.recklessgolf.com.au and send us an email and we'll talk about it. Thanks very much.